there we have it. I always knew that war crimes whistleblower David McBride was guilty of being a Sigma male. Unfortunately for David, that meant that he was forced to enter a guilty plea on the much less sexy-sounding charges of theft of Commonwealth property, unlawfully giving away defence information, and unauthorised disclosure of information. I'm telling you, first Sam Bankman-Fried, now McBride. Every Sigma male is getting taken down by the Matrix. Now, because on every video that isn't exactly about this subject, you have a bunch of girls in the comments with the stock standard whinge. In fact, any video we ever upload, Jordies is awfully silent on X. Chances are 90% of the time we have done the exact video on X that they're complaining about, and today is no exception. So many of these comments. Why has Jordies completely ignored David McBride's case since Labour was elected? Oh, the subject that we've devoted more videos to in the last year than any other subject by a wide margin. Yes, the silence has been deafening. Well spotted as always. Holding them to account, gang. If you'd like to see how many videos we've done on this exact subject, there's a little thing called the YouTube search bar. It's pretty cool. I just realised I have to explain this in the way one of those Indian guys that just films the screen does.
What you can do, please, is type in friendly Jordies David McBride, just here, please. And then watch my past videos. This will give very interesting thing called context to what I'm about to say in this video here. Thank you so much. Subscribe to Sanjay Fix It.
And you're not even going to do that, are you? Fair enough. So anyway, here's the long and the short.
Oh, I don't know how to feel about... fuck. Because this clip's going to come back to bite me in the ass when I go to make fun of Chuddy.
Short of it, David McBride, soldier. David McBride leaked war crime evidence to ABC. Government tried to put David McBride in jail. Pretty impressed with that summary, actually. Made me realise that we do pad out a lot on this channel. We could have explained 6 videos in 3 pidgin English sentences. The trial of David McBride happened. It finally happened. Years in the making. The trial is now over, if you could call it a trial, which according to the Oxford Dictionary, you can't, as the definition of a trial is a formal examination of evidence in court by a judge and offered a jury to decide if somebody accused of a crime is guilty or not. In McBride's case, it was pretty much the Department of Defence deciding that, nah, it's not in the nation's security interest for a court to be examining evidence. Yeah, I know, I sound like one of those conspiratorial posts on a sovereign citizen Facebook group these days, but it's true! David McBride was forced to plead guilty after barrister Andrew Berger, KC, acting for the Commonwealth, not only issued certificates under the National Security Information Act, which basically made the majority of the trial secret,
but they also went and made it so that McBride wasn't able to use any evidence. Everything that they tried to submit as evidence was basically told not allowed to bring that in.
The way the National Security Information Act is written means that this is essentially a way for the government to unilaterally suppress evidence. As the Act says, the court must give greatest weight to these certificates. But there was also a last-minute public interest immunity application from the Department of Defence, meaning that evidence that potentially exonerated David McBride was removed at the whim of the government, and from what I've heard, this was without the judge. I have to emphasise this. The fucking judge even seeing the evidence, which honestly, I know I'm not a lawyer. I know that I sound like a sovereign citizen yet again, but we're already this far in. I'm just going full Alex Jones. There's not proof that the Constitution is just a psyop, folks. The Australian Constitution, of which, like all sovereign citizens, I am a learned scholar on, it at least guarantees a trial by jury. I know that much. But the government could turn the trial into a predetermined professional managerial class theatre show, removing evidence from a judge under the grounds that that won't even be examined by a judge, as examining those grounds is also apparently damaging to national security as well. You think this sounds bad, but it always gets worse, doesn't it? Listen to this. Berger presented evidence from intelligence agencies, including the Office of National Intelligence, suggesting that its disclosure could compromise intelligence information provided by Australia's allies. Releasing those documents, Berger added, would jeopardise Australia's information sharing agreements with foreign intelligence agencies and damage Australia's reputation more broadly. You know what Berger's hinting at there? That's as close to an admission as you're gonna get that the Australian government is removing evidence in an Australian trial of an Australian because a foreign government wants them to. And
they just said the quiet part out loud, which is, this evidence looks bad, so we're not going to let it in. That's fucked.
You would have to be an idiot to not know which foreign government we're talking about here. China! No, but could you imagine if it actually was? Then it would be scary, but because it's the US, it's not scary. Crisis averted! The same thing happened at David's first trial, where he attempted to mount a public interest defence to his whistleblowing, only to have the evidence unilaterally removed as it related to foreign partners. Just going to extraordinary lengths, deconstructing everything an Australian court is, right in front of McBride that would even remotely favour him.
Another thing that I want to touch on is, like, everyone asking what happens after this Iran conflict, what do? Nothing's going to come of this. A full genocide of the Palestinians could be done. We could say goodbye to a whole group of people, and at the end of it, have a few trials and whatnot. But is anyone going to be held accountable? And that's it. Undeniable no. No one will be held accountable. Not Trump, not Netanyahu, not a single member of the IDF. Same when it comes to the stuff in Iran. This has gone on since World War II, since America pushed itself as the world leader. Basically, no one gets held accountable for any of the shit. The Nuremberg trials, those aren't gonna happen here. Those aren't going to happen with these situations. It's going to be America investigating America for things that America might have done wrong. So, do I think that, we're going to see justice for the Palestinian people or for the Iranian people? No way. No way. Because we can't even have justice for the Afghani people or the Iraqi people or the Syrian people or the Lebanese people, Jordanian people, Yemenis people. Like, fucking no one. There's no justice for anyone for the, We had everyone pulled out of Afghanistan 2019, 2020. It's now 2026, and we've only just gotten our first, arrest in relations to war crimes that were committed during that incursion, during that invasion. So, in 2030, 2040, when the shit with Iran finally stops, we're going to wait another 10 years before we try and criminally prosecute anyone? And even then, it's a low-ranking private who probably won't even fucking see a prison cell. I mean, that's what happened with most of the war crimes that were committed in Vietnam and Korea by the Americans. No one was held accountable. I mean, America dropped 2 nuclear bombs. Dropped one and then didn't need to drop a second, but dropped a second bomb on civilians. And no one bats an eye. It's a staple piece of our history, and a lot of people go, but it won the war and everything. At what cost? You murdered innocent people. The Japanese wouldn't have stopped. So? You know what they wouldn't have been throwing at you on the fucking front lines? Women and children. Women and children. They would have kept throwing every single man until they had only the emperor left. But you know what that would have meant? You weren't murdering women and children for no fucking reason. You were murdering the men who were running at you with guns trying to murder you. That's self-defense, motherfucker. How can we justify the annihilation of a fuck ton of people? I just can't rack my brain. Humans will find the worst ways to hurt each other and then stand by and go, but it had to be done. Fucking, who says? Are you God? Because the thing is, right, if you think that it's, the Crusades had to be done because it was ordained by God, well, guess what? Jihad is ordained by God too. Allah. It's just a different fucking language. It means the same fucking word. So guess what? They're ordained by God to kill you. You're ordained by God to kill them. Who's in the fucking right? Is God just you're all ordained to kill each other? Or is it love thy neighbor? Thou shalt kill, all of that shit. So, I mean, even if you want to take it down to religious fundamentals, it doesn't even fucking matter. At the end of the day, there's a moral code that humans have to live by in order to be able to survive.
No, you can't have normal court proceedings. Also, get rid of that house plan over there. It might make him a little bit happy during the trial. Can I have evidence? Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. No. Witnesses? No. Can I have a judge that hears my argument? The judge has ruled. No. All to impress a country that I'm pretty sure isn't even cognizant enough to know what it's ordering at this point. It's just so heft up on fentanyl, isn't it? But then the Attorney General has the gall to sit back and pretend, with no legal basis, mind you, that he can't intervene and put a stop to McBride's prosecution, as that would politicise the prosecution, when the prosecution was pushed for and launched by a department headed by a man, Mike Pizzullo, who would do anything to keep Labor out of power indefinitely, who just got fired for being too political. It's like pretending that you can't find a coup attempt because that would risk politicising the coup. It's not even wrong on that level for the Attorney General to claim that he can't intervene, but it's just flat out wrong. He already has intervened. Whilst he's claiming that he can't intervene, his lawyers are sitting in the courtroom suppressing evidence. They had control over 10,000 pages of evidence. He had the chance to put a full stop to Pizzulo, Dutton and Porter's legacy, and in fairness, he has ended it to a very large degree. Dreyfus introduced Australia's first substantive whistleblower reform. Big accomplishment, he absolutely deserves credit for it. Dutton's super department, the CIA of the Southern Hemisphere, that's been cleaned up without J. Edgar Hoover Pizzulo being ousted just last week, and that is emblematic of them ridding the bureaucracy of Peter Dutton's goon squad. Massive accomplishment. But the treatment of McBride is undeniably a black mark. Now, let's actually get into the trial. That'd be good 2/3 into the video, wouldn't it? The first part of McBride's trial pertained to an argument over the definition of duty. It's always about that, isn't it? Just definitions of words. It was also about what the jury can be instructed about it. McBride's argument was that he had a higher duty to act in the public interest. The Australian government's position was that he just had to follow orders. That was the duty definition. Acting for McBride was Stephen Hodges SC, who is a man who wrote the book on evidence. It's the textbook you study in law school. You know he's well armed. Basically, the crux of David's argument is there's no statutory definition of duty anywhere, but it implied duty to act in the public's interest. Despite how compelling the argument was, Justice David Mossop rules on the Wednesday of trial week against McBride, meaning that it couldn't be put to the jury that David had a duty to do the right thing in order to prevent war crime and potentially illegal behaviour. It was just his duty to follow orders, nothing else. That's all the jury could be instructed on that matter. Put aside for a second how this decision is at complete odds with the Nuremberg principles. You know, the principles the world agreed on after the Holocaust. We'll get to that eventually. But first, let's just examine some of the really, really odd conduct of Justice David Mossop. McBride's lawyers say they're going to appeal this decision, to which the judge responds he hasn't given an order. McBride's lawyers file an appeal the same day, and then the same night the prosecution writes to the judge saying they want an order from the judge. So there's a listing at 9:15 a.m. the next day. At the same time, McBride's lawyers are in the Court of Appeal, to which Justice David Mossop gives an order which softens his original decision just enough so it can't be appealed. All I can say is, that is bizarre timing. And even more bizarrely, when ruling on the public interest immunity removal of evidence, Justice Mossop gave his judgment at 3:30 p.m. on a Friday. That is half an hour before the registrar was set to close for the weekend, with the jury set to be impanelled on Monday, leaving McBride technically no chance to appeal. Oh, and even then, Justice David Mossop didn't give his reasons for judgment. He had to wait to get those ticked off and approved by Andrew Berger KC, as now he'd switch roles. Despite acting for the Department of Defence in applying for the removal of evidence, don't worry now. He was independently acting for the Attorney General, making sure the judgment didn't say anything the Australian government didn't want public. Insane. Normally, a judge never communicates with only one side. It's just a well-established norm that a judge communicating with only one side compromises the impartiality of that judge. But that was just another silly little legal principle thrown out the window by all the freaks running McBride's prosecution. See, when McBride was left with no choice but to plead guilty, McBride was not allowed to present certain evidence, not allowed to utter a word the public would ever hear, not allowed to argue he had a duty to act in the public interest. So you know what? When I think about how utterly rigged the legal system is, my big protestation with all of this is the same as Dutton's. We've gone full circle. First the 400 million on The Voice, and now this profligate waste of taxpayer money. When will the spending end? Should have just done away with the liberal pretext pomp and ceremony and just chuck McBride in jail. At least then the judge wouldn't have set these nasty precedents that make it way easier to commit war crimes by the Australian Defence Force in the future. Justice David Mossop handed down decisions that went out of their way to interpret Australian law in a way that acts as if World War II wasn't a thing and the Nuremberg trials never happened. It has now been established by Justice David Mossop that your duty in the Australian Defence Force is to just follow orders.
We didn't accept that argument from the Nazis, from the SS, from the ones who were pulling the fucking handles on the gas chambers. We do not accept that as defence from anyone else. Like, I'm sorry to say, but you have morality. You're born with it. If you lose it, that's on you. If you cannot distinguish the difference between what is right and what is wrong, and you only blindly follow orders, you are a sociopath, and you should not be handed a gun, let alone sanctioned to have that gun, go overseas, use that gun however you see fit, and come home with immunity and just act with impunity.
Like, come on, that is the caricature of Nuremberg principles. It is in direct conflict with Principle 4. The fact that a person acted pursuant to order of his government or of a superior does not relieve him from responsibility under international law, provided a moral choice was in fact possible to him. So yeah, David McBride might be guilty under Australian law, but if something like Nuremberg was held today, there would be Australians on trial. but they certainly wouldn't be including McBride. This is ensuring that if there are unaccountable murderous cells within the Australian government, nobody will dare do what McBride did to try and stop it, as if you do what McBride did, you're barely even guaranteed your constitutional right to a trial. And if you have a trial, it's almost certain no one will ever know. That's the new Australia that was ushered in with this judgment. Merry Christmas, everyone. It is December. Buy a David McBride book for yourself and for your friends this Christmas. It's the least you could do. Buy 5. Get it on the bestseller list. You guys see the news coming out of Canberra? It's crazy. Take a read of this. Former ACT public servant who climbed into a colleague's bed and raped her will be eligible for parole just 4 days after sentencing. Haider Ali, 38, received a jail term of more than 2 years when he appeared in the ACT Supreme Court on Thursday. He was ordered to serve a non-parole period of 17 months, but with the sentence backdated to take into account the time on remand, he will be eligible for release from custody next Monday. This one, teenage boy who raped a sleeping friend at his Canberra home has avoided jail despite showing minimal insight into his offending and its impact on the victim. What about this? Rising sports star rapist dodges time in prison despite lack of remorse. A rising Canberra sports star who showed no remorse for the rape of a teenage girl has avoided time behind bars and inclusion on the child sex offender register.
Let me just jump in here. This one's a little bit close to home. We've got Javon McSkimming, who was the police commissioner here in New Zealand, deputy commissioner. Disgraced former deputy commissioner McSkimming has avoided jail time, instead sentenced to 9 months home detention, and you can guarantee with the position that he had some decent money coming in, he's got a nice, comfortable place down in Wellington. He pleaded guilty to 3 representative charges of possessing objectionable publications. That's how you want to write it, RNZ? I would put it more like for possessing the most despicable, vile, possible fucking things that you could ever have in your possession, which is child sexual exploitation, fucking child porn on your work computer. This is disgusting. 9 months. Home detention. And this one is really close to home for me because 1, this is not far from where I live, and 2, this guy was one of my closest friends' family doctor, and this guy is an absolute fucking creep. He sexually harassed and assaulted and molested 3 young boys who were clients, who were patients of his, after previously, back in the 90s, being charged with sexually abusing young boys as a camp leader. Here's his face. His name is Jared Cook, and he was a doctor, a GP in Waikanae in the Wellington Kapiti district. As it says here, it is not his first time before the court. He pleaded guilty to assaulting young boys while working as a camp counsellor in 1997. So a position where kids would go to him for help, right? A camp counsellor. The judge noted that the offending had an indecent component to it. You don't fucking say, because I would call pedophilia and, sexual abuse of children as fucking indecent. And do you want to, take a guess at what punishment he might have gotten in 1997? Basically a slap on the fucking wrist, and he didn't even have to register on the sex offenders list. Then, he was able to become a fucking GP for children, and big ups. Big ups to the medical centre that did the fucking background check on this guy. Well done. Well done to you fuckers. The thing is, right, is this guy shouldn't be the only one who's not allowed to fucking practice anymore. Whoever is running that medical centre and whoever fucking hired him and whoever vetted him, they need more than just their medical fucking license taken, more than their practice taken. They need to be put in fucking prison with this guy. Because for 6 years, between 2014 and 2020, this cunt was able to go and reoffend and fucking abuse more children. So if you think that this is a fundamentally just American thing or a fundamentally just Australian thing, no, this happens fucking everywhere. Look at the Catholic Church. They will have somebody be accused of molesting children, and instead of, kicking them out of the church or maybe taking away their position of power, no, they just move him to the next place to give him new fucking victims.
Did you hear about this? Andrew Ralston, former AFP employee, spared jail on Instagram child sex grooming charge. A former Australian Federal Police employee sent an 11-year-old girl a message on Instagram, including one saying, "I want to see your nude body." It also reminds me about this thing that happened. Former Comanchero boss Peter Zadrovic dodges time behind bars after naked shootout. And this, Canberra father walks free after nearly 9 months in custody over Moncrief kidnapping. A cowardly Canberra father who assaulted a man during an 8-hour torture session at Moncrief has walked free from court after spending nearly 9 months in custody. What about this? Gunpoint rapist granted parole. An armed rapist and child sex offender who has been branded a high risk of committing more sex crimes has been rubber stamped for release at a secret parole hearing. Justice David Mossop in 2017 jailed Hadara for more than 5 years with a 2-year, 8-month and 2-week non-parole period. Isn't the news coming out of Canberra just wild? And you know what all these rapists, pedophiles, torturers, kidnappers and groomers have in common? They're all people that the ACT Supreme Court Justice David Mossop thinks deserve less time in jail than war crimes whistleblower David McBride.
This is here. Note, they all got less time in jail than McBride, apart from the gunpoint rapist. The article says he got over 5 years in prison. I'm guessing they're supposed to say which is probably around the same or less than McBride, who was sentenced to 5 years and 8 months in prison by Mossop. Unfortunately, the article doesn't specify how long exactly Mossop gave the gunpoint rapist, but he was out on parole after around 3 years.
Just in case it wasn't clear, Mossop, the judge presiding over David McBride's case, was also the judge or the appellate judge in every case I just mentioned. Isn't it amazing that Mossop is more vindictive towards David McBride, a veteran, a former lawyer, a man who nobody will dare allege as a risk to anyone, than he is to steroid-using, gun-toting, repeat-offending, pedophile rapists branded high risk of committing more sex crimes?
I have this belief, right, that you don't hold people accountable for shit that they did in the past if they're trying to make significant change. If they're actually remorseful for their behaviour. People can fuck up. You know, you don't want to hold someone accountable at 50 for something they did at 15. But this shit, you do not deserve redemption.
Rapists branded high risk of committing more sex crimes. In case you missed it, whistleblower David McBride has been sentenced to 5 years and 8 months in jail with 2 years and 3 months no parole for his sick, violent, perverted and self-satisfied crime of exposing war crimes and cover-ups of war crimes in Afghanistan. He is now officially the first Australian soldier to go to jail for their conduct in Afghanistan. Let that be a warning to all future potential whistleblowers next time you're frustrated about seeing government-sanctioned murders. Don't try and report it. Don't foolishly expect accountability. Do not go after the deep state and think you can win. Do not be induced by their doublespeak about transparency and accountability and honour. Instead, go out, grab a gun, shove it in someone's face and rape them. Let off some steam. You'll likely face lesser consequences and fuck your life up less than if you're in front of the American intelligence community's favourite judge, David Mossop. This judgment should be his albatross. If you make decisions entirely out of line with pretty much not just every legal expert who doesn't die in Australia's intelligence community every second week, but Australian public opinion in general, you should fully expect to feel the weight of that on you in your day-to-day life. After all, we are meant to be in a democracy, and it is very dangerous when our elite begin to forget that. Now, I have a lot to say about not just this judgment, but the successive judgments David Mossop made that went out of their way to deny even the smallest concessions to McBride. That will come in due course. I will also have a lot to say about all the wicked demon lawyers who made their living for the past few years trying to put a good man, a man that is far more impressive and honourable than themselves, in jail. But first I have to say, what does it serve putting McBride in jail? Put aside any legal, ethical or moral questions. They've already been comprehensively addressed by McBride's lawyers, despite them being deprived of key evidence by both Oz government spooks and our national broadcaster, the ABC, who abandoned McBride in his time of need. Forget all that legal shit. Forget even the question about duty for now. Just mull on this. A man who the overwhelming majority of Australians think should never have been prosecuted is now going to jail for 5 years and 8 months. That is a much longer sentence than anyone, even I think the government expected, the same government that whilst going on and on about how prosecution should be at arm's length, was instructing prosecution to push for jail time. This is dangerous for democracy. And I'm not even going into the chilling effect it'll have on future whistleblowers. Like, just think about it this way. In the wake of all the crazy shit COVID brought out in everyone, in a time when social cohesion and trust in government is at record lows, when it seems like every second person you meet has a martyr complex, this is very bad for perceptions and the political enfranchisement of Australians, throwing a man who most Australians think is a hero in jail. I know McBride's case might seem like a small Canberra elite issue. It's not. Videos of him are reaching millions. Articles about him are most commonly read on any given day. The Australian government would be very, very foolish to underestimate the mimetic power of the fact that the only soldier going to prison for their conduct related to the Afghanistan war is a war crimes whistleblower. The decent people in Australia's government bureaucracy should be just as gravely concerned about the burgeoning distrust of government in Australia. They need to reckon with the growing inability of the professional managerial class to act in accordance with the views of the majority of Australians. No one encapsulates that divide more so than Justice David Mossop in his McBride judgment. If the power of the international intelligence community continues to subvert this centuries-old and fairly simple concepts like open justice in Australia, it won't just be McBride who pays the price. It'll be all of us. I mean, do we really want to end up with a political system that resembles the US? This is a really big turning point for Australia. No one cares about your stupid e-safety commissioner shit, Albo. No one cares about your manufactured culture war crises. You're degrading democracy with this bizarre info-paternalism. But you can never build trust or faith in institutions by incompetently preventing Australians from knowing the truth, or by following the US model of Democrats propping up culture war crap. The government has no ability to address them in the first place, and then grandstanding on them and pretending the government can solve it. People can see through this shit. And eventually, you will end up looking like ScoMo, continually demonstrating your contempt for normal Australians, as if they're too stupid to comprehend the basics of government. Instead, have the tiniest bit of courage. Start following the majority opinion a little bit more. This could have been a non-issue. McBride's prosecutions could have been dropped in an instant. Instead, David McBride will be an albatross around the necks of campus institutions for a very long time. He is now a symbol of the disconnect between Australia's political class and the views of normal Australians. I'll have a longer video on McBride's sentence and the judgment very soon, and I would organise some sort of...
That's a beautiful way to put it. Like, the divide between the people and the state. That is a great picture, a great representation. You know, McBride is the right. And it's the same with Assange. It's the same with these journalists who are coming out here with the stuff that's coming from Palestine. These people who are being murdered, prosecuted, and fucking demonized for speaking the truth, for speaking up and having some morals, integrity, and dignity. If this is the way we treat people for doing the right thing, it's no wonder this world is so fucked.
Student protest to free McBride, but I kept getting accused of being racist towards Canberrans for my slogan, "From Lake Burleigh Griffin to the headquarters of the AFP, David McBride will be free." We've been making videos about McBride for over 3 years now. I get that it's an old trope, but I think it is because it is the most visible example of the tentacles of the American deep state strangling our nation's institutions. And to McBride, I know you can't see this video from jail, but for the love of God, somebody put it on a USB and smuggle it up their arse so they could show him. 5 years and 8 months might seem like a long time, but don't worry, it's nowhere near as long of a time as eternity, which is exactly how long Justice David Mossop and Prosecutor Patricia McDonald will be spending in hell.
So that was the big, dare I say it, context nuke. Content nuke, context nuke? No, okay. Basically catching you guys up on some of the things I'm probably going to be ranting about, and some of the things that hopefully we're going to be reacting to Jordies talking about. Because I have the idea that, you know, this guy's story and the reporting that's coming out is going to be right up Jordies' alley.
Hey, sorry for all the impromptu videos. There will be more, but there will also be other edited videos as well. Stay tuned for a bunch of very high-effort videos that don't have much to do with the current context happening in the world right now. It's just that things are happening very, very fast. For instance, you know, let's put Iran aside. Let's move closer to home and talk about Ben Roberts-Smith. Do you know who that is? No, he is not a shoe brand, although it would be a pretty high-end one if he was. And, you know, probably made by Afghani kids. But the point is that he is a fallen war hero that just got arrested for war crimes. Never thought I'd see the day. I honestly thought that guy was going to get off scot-free. Now, you can go into greater detail of his discrepancies, and I'll just give you a quick overrun of them. Allegedly kicked a civilian off a cliff, killed a disabled man, allegedly, blooding. Apparently he was into that. That's very cool. The kind of man that you would think would be completely uncontroversial that he is getting prosecuted and facing some sort of justice for it. The reason that I would think that that would be completely uncontroversial is I was under the illusion that Australia still had that sort of Americana 90s legal thriller vibe about it, where it's, you know, like a few good men standing up for what's right. And then it'd just be one of those court cases where you had some guy that looked exactly like Jack Nicholson, but with an Australian accent. You can't handle the truth. Wait, I'd imagine he'd be much more sunburnt as well. Just kind of blistering head. You can't handle it. So I thought that that would be what would happen, and then everybody would think, yes, this is why we are better than the Taliban, because we have a standard in Australia, and that's why we are the superior civilization, and then the credits would roll. But what happened instead of the credits rolling is a bunch of psychotic I'm assuming One Nation voters coming out and being like, he didn't do nothing. Really, just the same kind of, you know those geros at high school that like used to have like a behaviorally disturbed child and the mum would come in and be like, he didn't do it. And like, we haven't told you what he did yet. Yeah, whatever it was, he didn't do it. It's
So I've already experienced this because I posted up part 1, 2, and 3 of AusMerican war crimes. And the first one we briefly touch on the subject of Ben Robert Smith. I posted it on Facebook. I've just started my social media for the podcast, for the show. So I have no followers, hardly any views. I posted up a video mentioning Ben Robert Smith, and I've already got Australian white nationalists complaining in my comment section that he's a fucking war hero. You know, he's going to be... What were the comments? Hang on. In the comments, we've already got David McBride sits in jail clapping his hands. Ben Robert Smith, the murderer, sits in jail polishing his medals. McBride deserves to be sitting in the goal. And that's just a portion of some of the bullshit that we see on a daily basis when we cover stories like this.
It's like that kind of person is coming out of the woodwork to defend Ben Robert Smith. Can we all just agree that Ben Robert Smith doesn't deserve to be venerated in the same class of great Australian crims as Ned Kelly, which is where he seems to be going now. They seem to be putting up, even Freeman as well, like the guy that killed cops. You can tell that these would be the exact same people that when anybody else shits on cops, they're just going to be like, oh, defend the boys in blue. And then you have an active cop killer, and they're like, nah, put him up with Ned Kelly. He's a hero too. Well, he's not as stylish, I'll give you that. And then on top of that, what's happening as well is... I had to close the door. Somebody that doesn't want to be on camera just almost was. Anyway, we're talking about war crimes, so probably let's just turn it back. But look, yeah, that's what I thought would happen. Evidently, they came out to bat and defend that guy, which I personally think is quite interesting. So because there are numerous genuine heroes in the Australian Defence Force that you could be lionising, including virtually his entire cohort that came out and testified and said, yeah, he's a psycho. That man is not an Australian war hero. That man is a psychopath that just likes killing. Like, that's what they were coming out to testify for. And yet, he's the good guy? Not any of these other cohorts that came out and said that. What about all of the other Australian Defence Force? You could pick, there would be such a long list of Australian Defence Force personnel risking their lives, staying overnight in villages that were receiving reprisal attacks from the Taliban and were defending themselves to defend innocent villages. You could pick a ton of soldiers that would have been protecting aid workers while they were building vital infrastructure like wells that would have been picked off by the Taliban. There is a ton of people that I've read about that have done things like some civilian/interpreter pinned down in gunfire, and they've gone in and risked their lives and taken them. Every last one of them is a genuine Australian war hero. And yet you pick Ben Robert Smith, the guy that would go to those same villages that those other soldiers defended and be like, oh, nice, target practice. I don't get it. I don't get it. Can someone please explain it to me? The only thing, please explain. I think I just explained it. I think honestly, if you look at their profiles time and time again, it was just that type of guy that just writes like, family courts did me over. I didn't do nothing. Look, I'll give some of it the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the family courts did screw over some of them. It can't be all of them. The family courts can't have gotten it wrong every single time, but that seems to be a really big tell of it. It just seems to be a big tell that you are venerating a man, and you're not even at the point of, let's just wait until the facts come out. You're going out and backing in for him.
It's this, this bootlicking class. I don't know what it is. It's this parasocial, I don't know, like this, oh, he's my saviour, I'm gonna defend him to the death, and I'm gonna speak for him, and I can interpret his words, and I don't understand what this parasocial fucking ideological obsession is really for a lot of these people to be. Even when I talk about like Elon Musk and how like he didn't start any of his companies, he just fucked money around and does marketing and says that he's created all this shit, then people come into my comment section and they're like, oh, what have you ever created? You haven't got money like Elon Musk. And I was like, bruh, if I was given $1 million from my dad, dodged the draft in South Africa, moved to America and started working illegally, and brought fucking PayPal and then acted as if I fucking built it, and then I brought Tesla and acted as if I built it, and then I brought Twitter and act like I just fucking, like I had built it. Like, you know, what has he actually created on his own? You know, and you come out and say SpaceX, and then it's like, yeah, but is he the one sitting there doing science? No, he's sitting there doing fucking Twitter. He's constantly online and then fucking playing video games and shit and doing ketamine. And then all these other, like, smarter people come up with these ideas, or he comes up with ideas and says, implement it. They do the problem solving, they do the figuring it out, and then he comes out and goes, yeah, nah, I've just made this rocket that lands itself. It's like, what about your fucking team? The team of people who actually made it work, while your ass was sniffing cat and fucking posting on X.
It's a very interesting similar pattern to what happened with Mr. Kerry Stokes, isn't it? Who came out, he's a billionaire in Australia, he owns Channel 7, and he thought the same thing. No, he's got a Victoria Cross, so he's great, and I'm just going to make my massive media network sync for him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then the facts started coming out, then he started doing a back away, not today, disco lady, but the horse had already ran. It really just shows that there is a type of Australian or person in Western civilization that is so easily bought. Like, they really seem to have, coincidentally, the exact same thoughts that Channel 7 had. Isn't that odd? This is the same wake-up sheeple. Yous are all just tools of the mainstream media. Oh, Channel 7 said something. Nah, they're all right. They do 7, mate. And so they're just copying exactly, like, the talking points that I have heard when Channel 7 was running a defence for them.
It's like Fox News and Sky News, the whole Murdoch conglomerate doing the shilling and grifting for Donald Trump. You know, the shift that they do and the, you know, manipulation that they give to the public. It's just all too common nowadays.
This is that guy. On top of that, just seems to be a bit in their head. They look, again, I think that a hero is a very good indicator of the type of person someone is. Like, you're looking up to that person because you see something inside yourself, and I think that they see Ben Robert Smith in themselves, and that's really unsettling. That is really, really unsettling, and it is also extremely unsettling how easy...
It's like if you met somebody whose, you know, hero was Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer or something along the lines, like, oh, my hero is the guy who did the Columbine shooting, you'd be like, oh, okay, this person's a psychopath. Like, they look up to the wrong type of people. And then we, like, have these people who are looking up to war criminals, and they're like, nah. That's what cool war looks like. Yeah, cool war looks like shooting unarmed civilians and kicking people off the cliffs. You know, I don't want none of this boring war where it's actually like, you know, fighting with the enemy. Nah, I want to shoot women and children. That's real war. That's cool war.
Easy it is to manipulate people's minds, and then they won't let it go because no, that was the first piece of information I heard, so Ben Robert Smith is a hero. Doesn't matter what facts come out afterwards. Doesn't matter about all the people that testified that were around him at the time. None of their opinion matters. They're not, like, defending Australia for some reason. Just Ben. No other Defence Force personnel. Again, I am really not against the idea of, you know, the whole Australian digger legend living on and saying that Australian veterans deserve a level of respect that the ordinary citizen doesn't. I'm really not against that idea at all. But pick a better mascot. This guy doesn't deserve to be buried next to the tomb of the unknown soldier. He is everything that should be completely condemned in a Western military.
That's what I was saying. I think I said it in my previous video, or my other attempt of filming this part. If this is the person that you're exonerating and you're promoting, you're going to end up with a culture of, oh, okay, it's all right to commit war crimes. If you charge and prosecute and demonize a person who comes out and does the right thing, like blowing the whistle, such as what David McBride done, then it starts the social acceptability of charging and prosecuting people for war crimes or terrorism or being a traitor. When they come out and they blow the whistle on, you know, horrific things that their own country's doing. It leaves the, you know, social acceptability for a mass suppression state, you know, authoritarian regime. And are we really going to accept that in the West? You hear all about how you can't come out and criticize Korean government, if you're in North Korean government, if you're in North Korea, Russian government, all this shit. And it's like, really, is you say that suppression's evil, but then when we do the suppression, you're fine with it. So rules for thee, not for me thing, it's the same thing that I bring up. It's like, if you're going to have this moral standpoint, then have that moral standpoint for everything. Don't be a fucking hypocrite. Don't be like, oh, the Muslims don't let people speak, or oh, the communists don't let people speak. Bruh, it's happening here. Like, I'm so sick of this, like, oh, they're evil for the actions that we do.
Absolutely everything. There is nothing honourable about that. Like, using a civilian population that you are on the pretext of protecting as sort of just this, like, animal that you hunt, like that's defending Australia, is it? Anyway, I thought that was quite odd. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as to why this phenomenon is happening, because it honestly is quite interesting to me on a sociological level. I know it sounds really wanky, but seriously, like, that really says a lot about a cohort of Australia, doesn't it? So
I think it's this thing of, like, ideological martyrdom. These people who are part of these groups, with their beliefs, their politics, their religion, their, whatever it is that they believe, and whatever label that they put upon themselves and the subgroups that they're a part of, they need the mascot. They need someone that they can martyr, or defend, or look like they're being a victim of a system that they don't agree with. For example, Charlie Kirk, when he died, his name and his face got used by TPUSA to garner more support for MAGA, for Donald Trump. I mean, even the way that Donald Trump was going on, oh, the media is trying to silence me, or Andrew Tate with his, oh, I'm defending this, that, and the other for male masculinity, and, they're trying to suppress my speech, and they're trying to shut me up, because I'm trying to teach people how to get out of the matrix. He creates this boogeyman, and then creates himself as the savior. Donald Trump did it, Tate did it. And it's not necessarily that Ben Robert Smith has made himself the supposed savior, right? Or the mascot, the face, the defender of, this ideological thought process. But somebody did. And somebody made a mistake by making it him. So these guys will come out and bat and defend whoever it is. But you should have chosen someone to be your mascot, to be your martyr, to be your defender of the free world, defender of the ADF, a little bit wiser, because now you've got someone who needs to be defended, needs to defend himself. Whereas if you had somebody who was righteous, who hadn't done fucking war crimes, then there wouldn't be a need to, for all of these bootlickers to come out and defend him.
let me know your thoughts below. And also on top of that, I'm going to Queensland. Probably not a good time to be shitting on these guys who go to Queensland, but that's where I'm going next. Tickets below, go get them. And if Trump does something really nuts, which it looks like he is, I might have to do one of these videos again soon.
All right. This article is from 3 days ago. Jordies' video was 13 days ago. Prisoners handcuffed and executed, the war crime charges against Australia's most decorated soldier. Beaming into a small Sydney courtroom on Friday via video link, Ben Robert Smith sat silently as he appeared on war crime charges for the first time. The country's most decorated living soldier was earlier this month charged with 5 counts of murder, allegedly committed while the former Special Air Services corporal was deployed to Afghanistan. Fresh court documents seen by the BBC reveal in detail allegations that the 47-year-old murdered a disabled Afghan detainee, kicked a handcuffed prisoner off a cliff, ordered rookie soldiers to execute others in an initiation practice called blooding, and planted items on the alleged victims to cover up misconduct, such as throwdowns like ICM radios or whatever they're called, cell phones, random shit. Robert Smith vehemently denies the claims. Quote, "I always acted within my values, within my training, and within the rules of engagement," he said in a statement after being charged. The criminal case follows a 2023 civil defamation case in which a judge found, on the balance of probabilities, there was substantial truth to some of the murder claims against Robert Smith. Australia has never held a war crimes trial for one of its own, so what are the allegations, and what happens next? Whiskey 108 compound, 12th of April 2009. Robert Smith joined the Australian Air Defence Force as a fresh-faced 18-year-old and did 2 tours in East Timor before joining the SAS in 2003. By the time he was sent to a compound dubbed Whiskey 108 on 12th of April 2009, he had more than a decade of service with a Medal of Gallantry under his belt. Australian troops had been battling Taliban insurgents at the site near Tarankote, and Robert Smith's SAS crew were called in to clear it after an airstrike, the court documents state. They discovered a tunnel from which they pulled and handcuffed 2 men, identified by prosecutors as father and son, Mohammed Issa and Ahmadullah. Ahmadullah, who wore a prosthetic leg, was allegedly carried by Ben Robert Smith outside the wall of the compound, thrown to the ground, and shot multiple times using a belt-fed machine gun, the court documents say. Quote, this action was witnessed by several ADF members, including those who were providing a protective cordon outside the compound, the documents continue. Back inside the compound, Robert Smith turned his attention to the senior, Issa. Wait, so he just killed the son? He killed the son basically in front of his father. Is that what it is? Wait. Back inside the compound, Robert Smith turned his attention to the senior Issa. The prosecutor's submission continues. Grabbing a trooper referred to as the rookie, anonymized in the court documents as Person 4, Robert Smith borrowed a firearm suppressor from another man before placing the detainee on his knees. Shoot that expletive, the court documents allege he said to Person 4, who understood it to be an order and complied. That poor kid probably has it on his conscience that he followed that order. At the conclusion of the mission, both Robert Smith and his patrol leader claimed that they had blooded the rookie, the court documents say. Darwan village, 11th of September 2012. In late 2012, an Afghan National Army soldier working with Australian soldiers turned on them, killing 3 and injuring 2 others, sparking a massive manhunt. The search for Sergeant Hekmatullah became the highest priority for the ADF. Robert Smith, who the year before had been awarded the Commonwealth's highest military honour, the Victoria's Cross, went looking for him in a village called Darwan 2 weeks later. Arriving by helicopter on the 11th September, his team searched a series of compounds near a dry creek bed, capturing 3 detainees, the court documents say. One of them was a man called Ali Jan. The other thing is compounds could just mean houses, like random civilian houses that they were searching through, because the Americans were dead set on, searching building by building a lot of the time, and that was a practice that was handed over to the ADF as well. The prisoners were tactically questioned by Robert Smith, prosecutors allege, which involved him punching and physically assaulting the handcuffed men. Robert Smith then allegedly pulled Ali Jan, who was taken to the edge of a cliff by the colleague, given the pseudonym Person 11. Quote, whilst Ali Jan was still handcuffed and physically restrained, Robert Smith kicked him, causing him to fall approximately 10 meters and causing injuries including the loss of teeth, the court documents claim, adding that Person 4 and local villagers say they witnessed the fall. Robert Smith and Person 11 then climbed down the slope to where Ali Jan lay, hurt and still handcuffed. Person 4 told prosecutors he saw Robert Smith and Person 11, both carrying rifles, have a short chat. Several shots rang out when Person 4's back was turned, and when he looked over, Person 11 had his rifle up to his shoulder. The prosecution alleges that Person 11 shot Ali Jan. The court documents claim that a handheld radio, as I mentioned earlier, for the throwdowns, the one that Robert Smith had taken from the body of a man he had earlier killed, was placed near Ali Jan and photographed to support the killing. Robert Smith, during the defamation trial, denied any men had been detained or that the cliff existed. On 20th October 2012, Robert Smith, by then a patrol commander, was sent into... See, this is the thing, and we give them fucking, they do horrible shit, we promote them, and then we make them in command to tell other people to do horrible shit into the village to look for an insurgent dubbed Objective Pine. The reports from that mission say that 2 people were killed during fighting in a compound. Another 2 were killed shortly after shots and a grenade sent into the cornfield where they were refusing to surrender. That was a lie, prosecutors allege. A junior soldier called Person 66 says there were... Are they dubbing them these numbers from like the amount of, from, you know, who's testifying? You know, like there's 66 people, so, you know, number 4 said this, number 11 said this, number 66 said this. Like, if they've got that many people, or is it like, you know, number 4, number 18, and number, you know, 24 and 66, but there's only like 4 or 5 people. You know, they just give them those numbers for who they were in the rank or whatever. A junior soldier called Person 66 says the 2 men in the field were detainees murdered on Robert Smith's command. Person 66 says the pair were detained in the compound and then questioned by Robert Smith, who punched one of them in the stomach. The 2 men were later lined up at the end of the cornfield. A senior soldier shot dead 1 man before Robert Smith allegedly removed handcuffs and a blindfold from the second and ordered that 66 do the same. Whoa. See, and this is the thing, right? You've got Person 4 from the first incident, Person 4 and 11 from the second incident, now you've got Person 66. Like, did all these people just come across and just conspire to make up this shit? Or has this got some weight to it, you know? Because it seems like there's some decent fucking weight to it, where one guy said, oh yeah, I witnessed 2 war crimes, another guy saying, yeah, I witnessed, you know, another war crime. The man had been pushed to the ground, his knees up in front of his face. Prosecutors claim Person 66, who was... Wow. Person 66, who was on his first operation mission, paused for a moment, then shot the man 2 to 3 times in the chest, the documents say. So that's now the second person who Robert Smith made do a blooding initiation. He then watched as Robert Smith threw a grenade towards the dead detainees, described by investigators as an act to support the false claim they were killed during legitimate fighting. That shows the intent to cover it up, lead investigators, you know, to a false conclusion. And like, the other thing is too, some of you guys might not agree with me on this, some of you might, but I think even these guys, even though they were ordered to, you know, do these war crimes, I think that they should be prosecuted for the war crimes too. We didn't let that excuse sway our decisions when we were charging and prosecuting the Nazis. We shouldn't let it slide when, you know, we're prosecuting and charging anyone else from the West. We should hold them accountable. Robert Smith more so than what these guys, you know, these guys were following orders. Give them a bit of a lighter sentence. You know, they should have known better, but don't let Robert Smith take the fall for all of these murders. Charge them as well, because they should have known better. You know the rules of engagement before you get sent out. They know that you have the ability to say no to orders like that. Yeah, it'll fuck your career. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to stay in the SAS, but would you want to if that was what they were telling you to do? Forensic pathologists identified marks consistent with ligatures in photographs of at least one of the men. Less discernible linear marks were also found on the other. The trial could be years away, and that's true. This is gonna take a long time. There's a lot of evidence, it's a very high profile case, and it's not just a normal murder trial, it's a full-on war crimes trial. This has to be done by the book, step by step, because if any mistakes happen, then this guy walks free. Robert Smith stepped back from active duties at the end of 2012 and formally left the ADF in 2015, shortly after receiving a commendation for distinguished service. About a year later, top military brass began an inquiry into rumors of war crimes committed in Afghanistan, and media reports detailing allegations began circulating. And I'm pretty sure they might have some like David McBride might have some involvement in that media reports kind of thing. Robert Smith was by 2018 identified as the alleged perpetrator in several incidents, something he vehemently denied and launched a landmark defamation case over. He lost. If he didn't make that defamation suit, if he didn't push that, then there wouldn't have been so much eyes on this, and there might have been a chance that the top officials of the ADF would have gone, nah, let's sweep this under the table because we want, or like, let's deal with this in-house, you know, behind the scenes, because we don't want this, you know, screwing our reputation either. But because he brought so much light to it, well, they can't just let this fucking slide. In sworn evidence given at the civil trial, transcripts of which were included in the court documents tendered in the criminal case, Robert Smith denied he had ever broken the rules of war underpinned by the Geneva Convention. He also said he knew killing a person under control, or detainee, would never be permissible, and denied ever using throwdowns jargon to describe items like a radio or weapon planted at the scene of lethal engagements to justify them. We've already talked about this a lot. Quote, Robert Smith exercised his right to decline the opportunity to add, amend, or comment upon his previous sworn evidence, the court document says. However, prosecutors have outlined other evidence they want to use to make their case at trial. There were common themes to the alleged murders. The court documents concluded every single alleged victim was handcuffed, detained for a period, and questioned prior to the execution, and each was killed in a situation where the ADF had control of the situation and there were no active engagements with enemy forces. There was also at least one direct or witness account for each of the alleged killings. The court documents reveal that list includes 3 witnesses who testify that they were involved in the execution of one or more detainees. Now that's the thing, right? Why would you admit to, nobody in their right mind would admit to, hey, yeah, nah, I killed someone, I broke the Geneva Conventions, I did war crimes at, his order. If they're going to come out and say, yeah, nah, I fucked up and he told me to fuck up, then what they say about the other fuck ups that he did, don't you think that they have some weight to them? Because these guys are risking it, right? They're risking the fucking going to prison for a long time to, bring to light his actions too, either at the directions of or with the complicity of Ben Robert Smith, who was their military superior. And that's the thing, even if these guys are coming out and saying, oh yeah, I committed war crimes, he knows about them, he didn't tell me off for them, he didn't order me to do them, but he knows about them, well, he's in the wrong still, because he's the superior officer. He's supposed to go, fuck, get out of here, I'm reporting you, all that shit, right? And he didn't. So even if you want to be like, oh, he didn't do any war crimes, well, other people did war crimes and he condoned it. He did nothing about it. Robert Smith's legal team has not yet responded to the detailed allegations put in the documents, nor has the veteran entered a plea, and any trial is still a long way off. Granting Robert Smith strict conditional bail on Friday, Judge Greg Grogan said it would be not weeks or months, but years, possibly years and years, before Robert Smith appears in the dock. This is from the Sydney Morning Herald. Special treatment for Ben Robert Smith needs a better explanation. This was posted yesterday. On Monday, Premier Chris Minns was clear when asked whether he believed accused war criminal Ben Robert Smith had been afforded special treatment as he left Silverwater Correctional Complex. Minns said corrective services staff were simply taking measures to ensure Robert Smith's safety when he was escorted late on Friday through the back exit of the facility, avoiding a throng of waiting media at Silverwater's front gate. Quote, I don't think they would be applying that in relation to every prisoner who walks out, but in fairness to them, every prisoner who walks out isn't met with 100 cameras and 100 journalists, Minns said, when pressed on the actions of the corrective services staff. The Premier is correct that very few prisoners who leave jail attract such attention. However, the fallen war hero, who is facing 5 charges of war crimes, murder, is certainly not the first high-profile public figure to leave a remand or prison complex. Others, such as former New South Wales Labour Minister Eddie Obeid, or former TV game host Andrew O'Keefe, have had high-profile cases that generated much media interest. Neither received a corrective services escort, nor had staff assigned to block the window of a car to protect their privacy. That treatment was unique to Robert Smith. It was not the decision to allow Robert Smith to leave the complex via a back exit that should be under scrutiny. That is not unprecedented. Rather, it was what came next. He doesn't seem like he's too worried about having his fucking picture taken as he's leaving the facility, though. With the taxpayer-funded convoy, the staff deliberately obstructed a public road in an attempt to stop the former Special Air Services soldier being photographed as he left Silverwater in a silver Audi SUV. The Premier said on Monday that that measure was about ensuring safety. However, this departure turned into a chaotic situation that did not appear to be safe for corrective services staff or the media. As Herald crime reporter Riley Walter wrote on Saturday, a long-standing agreement allows media to wait at a designated point near the prison's entrance. Corrective services staff officers on Friday asked members of the media to remain on grassed areas either side of the entry and exit to the facilities and clear nearby footpaths. Maintaining that position, the officers said, would ensure the safety of both the media and Robert Smith as he left the complex. They did as they were asked, having been led to believe he would leave via the entrance, Robert Smith was then brought out of a different gate. It should be noted that protest about the behaviour of the staff, which is under investigation by corrective services, is not sour grapes from the media. Indeed, the Herald was able to carry out its job despite the best efforts from the prison staff. Press freedom underpins a functioning democracy, and any attempts to thwart that should be a concern. I agree. Equally concerning is why Robert Smith was seemingly given special protections not extended to others. There are serious questions to be answered about how this was handled. Corrective Services New South Wales review must be thorough, and its findings should be released. Former Australian soldier speaks out against allegations of Afghan war crimes. This is from Radio New Zealand. Speaking to the media on Queensland's Gold Coast, Robert Smith said he always acted within the rules of engagement in Afghanistan. Quote, I categorically deny all of these allegations, and while I would have preferred these charges not be brought, I will be taking this opportunity to finally clear my name, he said. I'm proud of my service in Afghanistan. Well, it's interesting to see what comes of this in the next year or so, because there is the highest of chances that we probably won't see a trial for, I'd say, an easy 4 years or so. It'll be the 2030s that we get a trial date set. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether or not we have any updates between now and having a judge set a trial date. So for the moment, until anything happens, our AusMerican War Crimes series is at a halt. I appreciate you guys for sticking around for our coverage of the context needed and for the situation that is at hand. I'll be making sure to keep you guys updated in the future if we have anything else come out from the courts. But let me know how you guys feel about this in the comment section below. Let's have an open discussion. Let's be cool, calm, and collected. Hope you guys have an awesome time. Relax, be at peace, love one another, free Palestine, end the blockade in Cuba, talk about Sudan, keep eyes on it all. From the river to the sea, deuces.